6:30. Okay, we're going to call the City of Detroit Planning Commission to order at 6:30. We'll start out with roll call. I'm going to start over here to my right. Katie. Kevin Cameron. Dean O'Donnell. Okay, so then we'll go into asking if anybody needs to declare a conflict of interest or ex parte contact. Hearing none, we'll move on to announcements. Anything not on the agenda? Yes, I do. Do I need to speak up? Okay, you got it. Do we have any announcements that we need to make before we start? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to why we're here tonight. So I'm going to read this out here if I can. I forgot my glasses, so bear with me. Good evening. My name is Dean O'Donnell. I'm the planning chair for the City of Detroit. I'll be presiding over the meeting. The public hearing is now open. This is the time and the place set for the public hearing in the matter of LA 22-01 for a legislative amendment to the Detroit Development Code to update every section of the code. Oregon land use law requires several items to be read into the record at the beginning of each public hearing. The city planner will read this material. Your patience is appreciated as the statements are read. McCray?
Now can you hear me? Yay! Okay, I'll start over. My name is McCray Carmichael. I'm a planner with the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments and have been serving as a planner for Detroit for about 3 years now. The applicable criteria for Legislative Amendment 2201, upon which this case will be decided, are found in the Detroit Zoning Code. The specific criteria are summarized in the staff report and will be reviewed during this hearing. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the criteria or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation which you believe to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on the issue. Failure of the applicant to raise the constitutional issue or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the decision makers to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will proceed with the staff report, then members of the public wishing to speak in support of the legislative amendment. All those who are opposed will then be allowed to speak, followed by those with general comments who are neither for nor against the legislative amendment. The commission or staff may request those who have testified to clarify. Please state your full name and address for the record. The hearing, if you have any documents, maps, or letters that you wish to be considered by this body, they must be formally placed in the record of this proceeding. To do that, either before or after you speak, please email or hand your testimony to myself or the city recorder, and we'll make sure your evidence is identified and placed in the record. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony regarding the amendment. If such a request is made, it'll be up to this body to determine if the hearing will be continued to a date and time certain, or if the record will be kept open for submission of written testimony. If the record is kept open, it will be for a minimum of 7 days with a short rebuttal period thereafter. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, questions for the audience? Are there any objections to the notice that was sent in this case? Hearing none, are there any objections to the jurisdiction of the council to hear and decide this case? Hearing none. Questions to for the council members? Are there any declarations of ex parte contact? We've already discussed that. Chair, we're now ready for the staff report.
Thank you. I'll move over to my other computer now. So this is legislative amendment 2201, a full development code review for the city of Detroit. We have 5 chapters of our entire development code. It's about 200 pages. Hopefully many of you have been able to review it or review the staff report and the proposed changes. A text amendment to the development code is a legislative amendment. A legislative amendment is a type 4 process that begins with the Planning Commission holding a public hearing and making a recommendation to City Council, who will then hold an additional public hearing for the legislative amendment. Back in November of 2021, the Planning Commission made a motion to begin this legislative amendment. We received funding from the DLCD to complete a code audit and review of the entire code. So beginning last February of 2022, the Planning Commission served as the Technical Advisory Committee, meeting monthly to review the entire development code. And how we did that was we just went through section by section of the code. Staff would make recommendations, had questions, and we would go through and discuss the sections of the code. Over that course of the time, the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee, also our Planning Commission, held 9 meetings and had 2 joint work sessions with the City Council, where they discussed, different provisions of the code and wanted to make sure that their interests were aligned. Of specific discussion has been the RV section of the code and what would be permitted. This hearing tonight was duly noticed. It was put in the Canyon Weekly Measure 56 notice. Requirement was mailed to all property owners on March 26th. DLCD 35-day notice was established in March, and the staff report and the draft ordinance were made available on 4/11/23. With that, we'll go through the approval criteria for making a decision before the Planning Commission. So the first one is the statewide planning goals under section 4.1.6G. And these involve, I'll read them out for everyone in the room. Goal 1, citizen involvement. Goal 2, land use planning. Goal 3, agricultural lands. Goal 4, forest lands. Goal 5, open spaces, scenic and historic areas, and natural resources. Goal 6, air, water, land, and resource quality. Goal 7, natural hazards. Goal 8, recreation. Goal 9, economic development. Goal 10, housing. Goal 11, public facilities and service. Goal 12, transportation. Goal 13, energy conservation. Goal 14, urbanization. Goal 15, the Willamette River Greenway. Goal 16 through 19 is coastal goals. So in reviewing these statewide goals, it was determined that goals 1, 2, 6, 7, 10, and 11 were applicable with our text amendments, that the language that we've proposed in some way deals with those goals and that we're meeting the intention of statewide planning goals. So for this, we've determined that the criteria is met. If people would like to review that more, they can see the findings in the staff report. The next one, comments from any applicable federal and state agency regarding applicable statutes or regulations. To date, we've received no comments from federal or state agencies. DLCD has reviewed the proposed code amendments and are in agreement. They would like this evening for me to talk with the Planning Commission some more about some potential housing provisions, but at this point, they're satisfied and are in support of the text amendments. And if there were comments from intergovernmental agreements and agencies, there were none identified as being applicable, so these findings are met. Any applicable comprehensive plan policies and provisions of the code that implement the comp plan, compliance with 4.7 for comp plan amendments and land use. The proposed amendments to the development code are in compliance with both the procedural requirements of the development code and statewide planning goals and administrative rules. So with that, that is my staff report for legislative amendment, and we can discuss, if we need to, specific provisions of the 5 chapters that you all have already reviewed. you can ask additional questions of me if you like, or you can open it up to public comment.
Any questions, Mr. Chair? But for the record, I want to make sure that we acknowledge, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 letters, and I think there may have been one more that was submitted.
Yeah.
13 for the record that have been
Emails and letters,
for the record.
yeah, that we've received for comment. And those will be entered into the record.
Okay. So I'll open up public testimony regarding this case. I'm going to ask for a 3-minute limit on whatever you'd like to say. So the first question is there anyone that would like to speak in support of the application? And I will say that about 90% of the letters were in support. So that being said, do I have anybody else that would like to add anything to the record? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask if there's anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the application. Please, just stand up and ask, we want to ask your name and where you live. Can you
Would you
come
like
right
to-
up front, please? Thank you. Just that, you know, that. So work?
How about this? Ooh,
That's
that
perfect,
works.
yeah.
Okay. My name is Miriam Rasmussen, and we own 330 and 340 Detroit Road South. I hope I'm in the right spot. I don't,
Yeah.
My questions are regarding the RV provisions, and the first. So I guess I wanted to comment. One of the goals being the public input. I know even through last night, there seems to be real confusion as to what exactly is being proposed. We had the chapters emailed to us last week, and Chapter 3 was in a Word doc with edits on it. Is that the latest version that we're dealing with?
So McCray, can you answer that?
Yeah, so the document that was part of, thank you. The document that's part of the staff report shows proposed language and language that's being struck out. And so if you're asking specifically about the RV section, what is being proposed is that one RV will be permitted year-round, and then an additional RV would be permitted from April 1st to October 31st. The current code allows property owners to have 2 RVs from April 1st to October 31st, and then the potential of obtaining 2 additional permits to do that. You are not supposed to have an RV on your property year-round unless you have the temporary housing to have an RV on your property. So our code, these proposed changes will allow someone to have an RV year-round on their property.
So there was the one RV, but the second RV was requiring a permit, is that?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, so that's,
Yeah.
it's not just 2, that's the change then. So I guess then, I also had asked for clarification between, there was human occupancy and storage, and there seemed to be some different guidelines for that too?
Not necessarily. Like, regardless of if you're storing it, there are some provisions further down in the code for if you're storing. But if you are living in the RV, we want to make sure that you're hooked up to water and that you're meeting setback requirements and those sorts of provisions.
Okay, so my question then on the permit, it sounds, is there were no criteria attached to the permit. So a permit is required. What's involved with a permit? Is it guaranteed as long as you meet the same setbacks, noise, ordinances? Can it be denied? And I'll say, I mean, certainly it's a little bit of definitely personal interest, but I also think that this is really, there's so many people that are impacted, probably even more than us. We have adjoining lots. We just spent a few $1,000s getting approved RV hosts, one on each lot, that can service 4. Okay, we've tried to meet everything, yet if we need a permit, what's the criteria? And are we guaranteed one?
Mr. Chair, Mary, here's what I would say. If you have 2 lots, you have 2 meters, water meters, correct?
Yes, and
If you're
electric.
hooked up to 2 water meters, you have 2 lots. This code allows you to have 2 RVs on each lot.
Right. But the permit, so is there any
So
other
you-
criteria for the permit?
Oh, I haven't seen the application for the permit, if it's been developed yet.
So we currently have a permit that anyone who in the past had more than 2 RVs on their property should have obtained a permit from the city of Detroit. So we're operating under that same permit that was being used before, that had to have 2 counselors sign off on it. And it's really to serve as a tracking to make sure that people are in compliance and that we know where people are using this temporary provision. So the permit is not a new document. It's not something that is being created. It is in existence now, and citizens
Uh,
potentially have applied for it.
Mr. Chair, if I may, one of the reasons for the permit and to be able to understand that is that if somebody's abusing the situation, causing problems, I know the council, the city council, I've just recently heard the city council is going to be contracting on code enforcement. So there would be an ability to track back what that situation is. You asked if the permit's guaranteed. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed in this world, but if you're, complying with all the rules and regulations of the setbacks, the water meter, septic, or pumping, then there should be no problem in reapplying and having those permits.
Can something like that be added to that clause then? Because at this point, it just says permit, and there's just, what if, I guess, 5 years from now, and somebody decides they don't like the color of our motorhome, it just doesn't seem like there's any protections on that. Whereas, of course, when we purchased the property and spent our thousands, we didn't need anything like that. Just a little concerned about the protection on that.
I'm not too sure. What specifically are you suggesting would be
Just
I mean,
something
you
to-
can talk to the commission right now about recommendations that you're asking for.
Okay. I guess just basically verbiage like you were saying, if you meet the setbacks and you have the appropriate electric and water set up, then you're good. I mean, and there's the fee
But-
thing we haven't talked
Mr.
about.
Chair,
the
if I
fee.
may, but there could have been a code enforcement issue on that property the year before, and the council may look at that and deny that if there was some problems on that property. So nothing's guaranteed. If you're abiding by all the rules, we're going to make a recommendation to the council. They can do whatever they want with our recommendation, but the permit will say, here's the rules that you need to follow. I mean, the guidelines of the setbacks and the water meters and the electrical hookup. But if there's a problem on that property where the sheriff had to be called out because of noise or whatever, those things, if they get recorded at the city, then there's a potential that somebody may look at that the next year and say, no, we're going to deny this permit for these reasons.
And that makes total
Just like in an
sense.
OLCC application if there's problems.
Right. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, my overall feeling is just that there's such a diverse group. We're all here. I'd love to have a beautiful chalet. Maybe my kids will build one day. But at this point, RVs are important to us. And so I guess in the last comments, and this really probably, it doesn't apply to me personally because we do have these 2 lots. But I also feel like the whole community, it's not like a uniform subdivision where everybody's lot's the same size. I mean, there's lots that one probably would meet the setbacks, where there's others that maybe four would. So I guess I sure, just the community that we bought into, and just think about all the people that are involved and how different they are. I wish there would be some consideration about lot size. I've heard that tossed around. Something that isn't quite so strict. That's
So if I might, we appreciate every comment you made. So if I might, we have to make a recommendation that would meet the city of Detroit, not just a lot. I have a lot that's 50 by 100. I have a lot that's 100 by 100 down the road here a ways. And because of my septic, I don't have room for one RV on my lot. So I fully understand that we have various lots with various possibilities, and we don't want to eliminate anybody, but we have to have something in place as a general rule for the entire city. Does that make sense?
it does, although when I read this, I thought it was reading that 2 was it, I mean maximum.
2 per one lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Which again doesn't
Okay.
affect me, but okay. I thank you for your time, and I know you've had a lot of issues over the last few years to deal with, and I appreciate all your work on it.
Thank you.
Thanks for being in Detroit.
Mr. Chair, can I ask McCray to explain? Can you hear me?
Yes.
McCray, can you explain I don't know if it's code or regulation from the county with what constitutes as an RV park and how we got to the 2?
Essentially, we have been working with the Marion County building official who has, routinely shared with us that if you have more than one RV on the property in a permanent capacity, it's an RV park. So more than one under state laws for regulating RV and manufactured home parks. So to allow for the additional one is temporary provision, right? That we're not looking at a full year. We're looking at just a 6-month period where someone would get a permit, and then there's still standards. There's these setback requirements, and that you hook up to water, and that you have facilities to manage the RVs. So really what the discussion has been, first with the fire and enacting the transitional housing that allowed people to live on an RV year-round, even though our code doesn't currently permit you to do that. And then ongoing discussions with the county. It's been determined that more than one RV should be an RV park, to which a property owner could apply to have a regulated, permitted RV park on their property if they could meet the requirements, both our local land use, that you'd have to go through a certain type of application where your property neighbors would be notified, and that you have to have some screening requirements, and you have to have a paved area for the RV pads to be on, and a paved road. And then there are some state building code requirements for RV parks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Good evening,
Please.
Commission. My name is Larry Gesher. Our property's at 320 Detroit Road South. I guess we've been coming to Detroit for over 20 years with RV, with our family, initially staying on our friend's property, to where we got to the point where our family, their family got to the point where we were getting too big, so we purchased our own property with the intent of our kids staying on our property with us, so they all went and bought RVs. Obviously, this impacts us to the point that one of you can tell which grandkids don't get to come and stay at Detroit because there's not enough space at the property now to put the RVs that they have been staying in. I back up what Miriam's saying, where there's no consideration to the lot size. If we can achieve setbacks with a number of RVs on a given piece of property, why does it matter? And I guess there's not one RV, park in this town that meets the criteria that she just explained. There's no RV parks with full hookups with including sewer. There's no RV parks with paved parking spots, as she just designated as Marion County requires. So I guess maybe look at the own RV parks that are here too, because they're not meeting the criteria that she just outlined. And so I guess as a property owner, I guess the intent was we had our rights, and the rights were established of what the code was, and now we're changing that to where we're impacted to where that's why we're sitting here tonight. And then not considering that we're talking 3 months out of a year, how big an issue is this? Have you guys looked and see how many lots actually have more than 2 RVs on it in the summer months?
Anyone want to comment on this? I personally know that we have lots in town with 3 and 4 RVs on it. And when there's an emergency call with the fire department, they are inaccessible for the fire department to even get in there. So that safety has got to be a consideration for your plan.
Agreed.
Okay. As far as sewer goes, as long as you have a contract with a pump station that's going to come there and pump your
Correct.
RVs out
Correct.
on a weekly or monthly basis, whatever it may be,
Right.
then that classifies meeting the code.
Okay.
So one of the things we definitely want to point out is we can't allow gray water to be running on the ground,
Correct.
which is happening.
Mhm.
Okay. What am I missing?
But restricting to 3 or 4 doesn't change any of that.
Say that again?
Restricting to 2 RVs doesn't change any of the stuff you're
So
talking about.
explain to me with your lot size.
Half acre,
Give me a parameter. What's a half acre?
300 by 290. It's a
Okay,
triangle
and that's
shape.
one lot?
One lot.
So you have a lot that size. Okay, that's a rarity in Detroit, as far as I know. Okay.
Yeah.
My neighbor's 2.5 acres.
Pardon me?
My neighbor's 2.5 acres.
Okay. And where are you located again?
Detroit Road
Detroit
South.
South. Okay. So what I would say is, say we come up with a code for the city. I would ask that there be a procedure where those lots have a avenue for approval based on the size of their lot and their plan that they want to use that lot for. Now, if you're in a residential area, I know that the city council is definitely opposed to having a RV park, quote unquote, in a residential area, which doesn't really line up with any code in Marion County or the state of Oregon. And I also know that Detroit probably has the most liberal code for RVs in the entire state. So we're here to work with you, not against you.
Understood.
So we appreciate the input. We just want to come up with a resolution for the entire city that will meet everybody's needs. Does that make sense? I know
does.
we're not going to
It
make
does.
everybody happy.
I get that. But I think you have to take into consideration the size of lots.
I would agree with you
Because
totally.
I
Yeah.
challenge anybody to come to our lot when we have 4 trailers on it
Yeah.
and say you can't get in there with emergency vehicles because you can.
Okay.
And so I get there's some lots that doesn't work on. I think somehow, I get
Sure.
you guys got a big basket you're trying to figure out, but
Sure.
you have parking regulations, so it sounds like it's a parking issue, not an RV issue, if you can't get into someplace with emergency vehicles. I mean, we
Yes,
we
McCray.
put restrictions on streets now for parking, so it's no different.
I just wanted to offer that we do have a process that permits in the residential zone you being able to have, the multiple RVs that you're talking about. And I think that there's like an intimidation I'm sensing that like if you were to apply to be able to have an RV park, that's something wrong. But our code allows you to do that. And you could, and you have a lot this size and others that have these larger lots. We're just wanting what the TAC came up with and the direction between the council and the planning commission was there are a lot of small lots within the city. And when these small lots during this summer period is being maximized with the 4 RVs, there have been reports and safety issues that arise. So I want to make it clear that there's still the ability to apply through a land use application. You have to apply and gain approval, but if you wanted to use your property in that capacity, you could. And the provisions are not insurmountable, right? There's some screening, and there are some permitted RV parks within the city of Detroit, and they meet the code. So I just want to offer that there is the ability to get there, but this is just what would be permitted outright that everyone knows and that there's a clear starting point. And this idea, it was discussed allowing or having variances on your lot size, and the Planning Commission and the City Council determined they didn't want to go that route. They wanted to allow it across the board because our code would permit you through a conditional use permit to apply for an RV park.
And maybe one more thing to back up what Marion saying on the permit process, I guess then put the stipulations of when you can deny. So put if you got code violations that the city, I mean, because right now it's a black box for residents. Because it says turn this application in and we don't know if it's going to get approved or denied. At least list out, these are the things that you can get denied for. And then everybody knows that if I screw up, I'm going to get denied. Because right now it's a
Okay.
black box.
No,
So
that makes
thank you for your
sense.
time.
The only problem, Mr. Gescher, is trying to figure out what all those are, right? we got a couple sheriffs are back here. I just want to make a comment, Mr. Gescher. Thank you. As a former property owner of 2 lots on Sandy M, I wanted to put 4 RVs because the code at the time said you could do 2. Well, I couldn't. Well, I could, but I had to go through this whole driveway access. I had to put another water meter in, so I chose not to do it. You know, and I just understand that there's restrictions at times that I can't do what I'd really like to do. I've always raised my children this way. I say that, you know, you think you own the property, you really don't. The government does, and they tell you what you can do with it because you pay property taxes, right? So I understand your situation, 1/4 of an acre, you know, that's, did you say a ½ acre? So you got 22,000 square feet, that's a big lot.
Please, come on.
Looks like I'm still on. Yes.
Yeah, you're on.
I'm Christine Rasmussen, and we own 430 Santiam Avenue. And I can't believe we're doing this again. I mean, I was on the Planning Commission when we did it in 2019. The only fair way to treat everyone the same is the size of the lot. You've got to take that into consideration. If it's only big enough for one RV, they can only have one RV. Why change it? Because most of them are big enough for 2. So this is getting, you know, repetitive. When we bought our property, we bought it and it's platted for five lots, but it's over 3 acres of property. We bought it for us and our family. And at one point, we had thought about an RV park. We were told at the City of Detroit that we could not do that. So we had to change our property from commercial to residential so we could have our RVs there. There are 4 owners, us and our 3 adult daughters and their families, and we use our property. We don't infringe on anyone else. We have our 4 RVs there. We spent, like everyone else in town, $1 zillion to get all that set up. And now you're saying, oh, well, sorry, you can only have 1. That cannot be. I mean, it's really, the size of the lot has to be a part of the criteria here. Because it's just
Christine,
not
do you
fair.
have, is your lot one tax lot?
Yes, we are using it as the 3.05 acres.
Yes, but your 5 acres is one tax lot.
Yes, we changed that from the 5 lots
Okay.
to the 1 3-acre lot.
Okay, so I would like
Spent
to,
$1 zillion on
Yeah.
that, too.
so I'd like to applaud you because you have an exemplary property that I've always admired, and you guys do an incredible job with it.
Well, thank you. That's appreciated.
Yeah,
But, you know, I just can't understand why we have to do this again.
because there are situations other than yours.
But if you hire a code enforcement person and they can make sure that the lot can handle 1, 2, 3, or 4 RVs, problem solved.
So
Keep
your
it the way it is.
recommendation would be that we have an application process. You would have a plot map of your property. You would go to the city hall. You would present your plan for your property. They would approve or deny it based on the criteria of your lot.
Yes.
It's a very good recommendation.
And if someone needed to inspect it to see
Yeah.
if that was
That's a-
possible,
That's a good recommendation.
yeah. So if we have a code enforcement person, we can do it.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
McCray, would that be a conditional use permit?
No, I think if you had criteria, say you had something like on a 5,000 square foot lot, although we have some sub 5,000 square feet lot, so 5 or less, you may have one RV. And have the parameters, specific standards of what the lot size would be. You wouldn't necessarily have to do a conditional use.
And that would be fair.
So Christine, you do not live on your property year-round either.
But I guess I don't.
Well, we have since the fire,
No, yeah, I agree.
but we don't live in it.
Right.
We
But
come
you-
to stay and work.
Right, you're rebuilding your home?
We are rebuilding.
Yeah,
our-
that's what I thought, yeah.
I would like to back up because I started to state that, but that still gets us to the part of the compliance with what constitutes an RV park. And if
Correct.
you're more than one, and we're talking about permanent, not having it be temporary provisions, that's a little bit more unknown. And
I
But-
think all
but
the
there could-
RVs here are.
they could.
But
So
there-
please.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask staff, but you could have, no matter what the size of the lot, say it's a half acre or a third acre, whatever, if there was still only one full-time
Mhm.
year-round,
yes,
right? And
That-
you could have 3 or 4, or 3 additional seasonal, which gets you away from the RV park deal.
I.
Because we're doing it with 2. We're doing it with 1 permanent and one temporary.
Mhm.
If we keep it the way it is.
So we'd have to clarify that.
I think we can clarify that with legal counsel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Christine, the way it is, it's 2 plus 2.
Correct.
On any lot.
That's correct.
The way it is now?
But you have 3-acre
Temporary-
lots, you
or
have
temporary
2-acre
road.
lots, we
But-
have a 50 by 50 lot.
So 2 years ago, before the fire, it was 1 plus 1. Then the fire hit, and everybody went,
No, it wasn't.
There
am I
was-
wrong?
I
No.
applied for the permit for 2 additional, and we got 2. So we had 4 RVs on all summer on our property. Because it's ours, our 3 adult daughters and their families.
No,
And then when we lost our home,
Right.
of course, it's been nothing but money, money, money
yeah,
since.
no, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would just like to say that I think it should stay the way it is, and a code enforcer could be taken care of that without changing anything.
Appreciate your comments.
Yes, thank you.
So I can't clarify what the code was before 2000. I thought it was 17, but 2019 when the code amendment happened here that allowed people to have 2 RVs permitted outright from April 1st, our current code, from April 1st to October 31st, you can have 2 RVs on your property, and then you can apply for a permit to through the city hall. You make your application, and then 2 city councilors can sign off to allow 2 additional permits. Is 17 or 19? I thought it was 17, but it could be 19. That was before I became the planner, but yeah, I agree. I think it was 2017, but you on the record said 2019, so I just wasn't sure. So 2017, then the fires happened. We had the emergency ordinance 266 to permit property owners to live who were impacted by the fire to live year-round in an RV if their properties were damaged. And now the current proposal is to allow 1 RV year-round and then 1 additional one during the April 1st spring, summer season, I'm calling it.
So we've improved from only having 6 months to year-round.
Mm-hmm.
And we also, didn't we change that you don't have to have 2 city councilors approve that staff can approve, or that was our recommendation?
That's the recommendation, that there's no longer a city council approval, because in the same way, there's been testimony about sort of what's the criteria for those additional, and having clear standards. The question could be raised now: what is the criteria that councilors are making a decision on for the 2 additional ones? There aren't any criteria. So I think to the testimony you've heard tonight, we can clean up the language that clarifies that the permit is just looking at the standards that are outlined in our code right now of the setbacks and managing your gray water. There aren't very restrictive standards, but it's really, the permit is intended just to serve as that tracking for the temporary provision during the spring, summer.
Very good. Do you have anybody else that would like to speak?
Tad Humphreys, I own 215 Hill Street, and I guess I just need clarification here. I don't keep an RV on my property year-round, but I bought my property in 2006, and for the most part, we've always had 3 RVs on it. We've had 2, and then we've gotten the permit from the city to do that. So, I mean, is that still in effect? Because, I mean, when I think in the letter it said that 2 RVs and that's it. We're not going to consider any more than that. So did I read the letter wrong that we got?
Can I clarify?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer your procedural question. The code as it exists today allows someone to have 2 RVs from April 1st to October 31st without a permit. And then you have to obtain a permit for 2 more and have council approval. In February, City Council made a policy decision that they would no longer be signing off on the 2 additional.
Not even 3. So you can,
The 2
you can have the
additional.
2, but you can't apply for a 3rd one or
Yes.
a 4th one.
Yeah. That is not what is codified, right? Like, that's not what is our current code, nor is that what is proposed, right? It's a space in between. So the letter was intended to clarify council's, this is really confusing, there's a lot of details here, that the council gave direction in February of this year on, knowing that they had had a work session with Planning Commission to talk about specifically the RVs, but the entire code updates in general, and so they held a hearing, or they had a discussion and made this policy choice.
So
And then the letter was sent out clarifying, so that property owners would know what was happening
right.
this year before the
So
text
for
amendment and the hearing we have right now.
So the way that it is now, or what will be approved, will be just 2 non-permanent RVs on a lot.
So, just to clarify, nothing's going to be approved here tonight?
No, I understand that.
We're listening, taking feedback, and going to make a recommendation to the city council. But as of now, from what you just said, there is no pathway to go and apply for the 3rd RV. Is that what I just heard?
Yes.
The way, because of the action that council took in February. But we're basically looking at this whole recommendation all over again tonight.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I guess so.
That's
I
why
mean,
we're
I'm
here.
surprised that council would make that decision before it was proposed to the planning commission or proposed to the residents, to where it's like, nope, that's it. Two and that's it. And in the past,
Again,
we've had
they asked-
3 and 4 or whatever.
They asked planning to work on this. That wasn't directed to you or the residents, it was directed to planning.
Right.
So the process is, council asks us for a recommendation. We have a public hearing to listen to your input. We come up with a recommendation, it goes back to council, and council makes the final decision.
Right. Okay. All right.
No, it is not.
Yeah. All right. Good enough.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Do I have anybody else that would like to speak for or against? Thank you. I understand. I got it.
Against what?
The whole thing.
Hi, my name's Tina Russell. I have a property on Tumble, and they pretty much have covered a lot of what I wrote to bring to you tonight. One suggestion I would make is I know that the council doesn't want to vote on the second or the third and fourth RVs, but why don't they just have somebody put a plan in of their lot and a description of it, and with all their setbacks, and draw up a plan with where the RVs are going to be and submit it to council. That way, not two council members have to make the decision, but it could be all of them making the decision on property.
Sure.
Instead of, just saying absolutely no more than two,
Okay,
okay?
I agree.
And then, that's really, and I'll just give my letter to them.
Mr. Chair, Tina, before you leave. So if there was certain criteria laid out for lot size that said a lot over this size could apply for 1 or 2 extra RVs.
Correct.
Would you be okay if there was a time frame that had to be done by like February 28th to be approved for the next season? In other words, to get it through a process that if the council was referring it to the planning commission to review it. In other words, you just couldn't show up on July 1st and say, I got 4 people that want to move in tomorrow. Would you
Right.
be okay if there was a process that there were some dates? If you missed that date, then sorry, you got to wait till next year?
Definitely.
Would that be fair?
It's the same with what they did with ATVs and golf carts. You have to have your permits before you can be up here driving them. Why not have it to where you put in a permit with all of your plans prior to April 1st for the season? Most people up here already know their lots. They already know who's going to be coming for the summer. It's just not fair for anybody. I bought my lot for my kids and me and my husband to have family time up here. I bought a double lot. It fit 4 RVs perfectly in there with plenty of access in and out. The whole front, you could drive in there. So we made sure all the setbacks were right. We did everything. We went and did our septic, water, electrical. We did all of it. Then all this started being brought up. And for the last year, I've been having to deal with this. So
Let me ask you another question. So you bought a double lot, you get 2 tax statements?
I know it's one lot.
Okay.
So I did do a proposal to the council 2 months ago, giving them a way to make more money here. And that would be if you had 2 RVs and you charged $100 for each additional RV, and you also had to pay for your ATV or golf cart, you would be paying the city of Detroit more money than a $699,000 house paid in taxes for the year. So I did a full graph. I just gave them that graph. And it was a win-win situation. I thought, God, that would be perfect for city of Detroit to make revenue and everybody else to be happy.
Wait, I just want to clarify. So $100 for a golf cart,
Yep,
$100 for each RV, so that's $300.
correct?
That's more than a 600?
Plus what you would pay for your, it would be 100 for each additional. So it would be 1, because at first they were talking about 1. So if you paid 300, 100 each for your RVs and 100 for your golf cart, I was paying more than a $699,000 house was in taxes to the city of Detroit.
You're referring to the revenue that the city of Detroit would
Correct.
receive,
Yeah.
not the tax.
No,
not
not
the
the
tax.
whole
Taxes on
tax.
600.
No, just what the city of Detroit gets from Marion County taxes.
I have a clarifying question if I can. So from those of you that we've heard that have larger lots, I think I'm hearing you say that you have already identified who is coming into your lots year after year after year, or do you have transient, I mean that is, do you have different people coming every week or
No.
every weekend?
No,
You would? Okay. Thank
So for those of you who are renting your lot out on a weekend basis, is that what I'm hearing? So in essence, you're running an RV park then, if you're renting your space out for the weekend? So there's no revenue exchange, is that what you're saying?
And we have friends too,
Okay.
a couple that comes up during the bigger weekends.
Okay.
But mostly it's just
Yeah.
our children and us. But it's irrelevant now because I did buy a manufactured home because I was tired of dealing with this every month.
Correct. I don't blame you. For those of you who have lived in an RV over the winter months, it's not easy. I know, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do I have anybody else that would like to speak for or against? Okay. Hearing
How about if
none.
we just want to speak?
So that's, our turn's coming up. Oh, okay.
Hi, my name's Carl Haynes,
Carl?
and I own 230, 240, and 250 Scott Avenue.
Okay.
And they are set up as 3 separate tax lots at a quarter acre apiece. And in 2020, when I bought that property, it was the full intention is to have RVs on the property per the ordinance at the time.
Okay.
I did draw plans and submit them to City Hall as to having 2 to 3 RVs on per lot. Can be for my family, my kids, and friends. What I'd like to point out is I've spent a lot of money developing that property, paying the city for city engineers, and paying for all that driveway accesses, water meters, everything to get that put there. And now we're going back down to 2 RVs per lot. I have purchased the permit, the extra third and fourth permit, just because we would have extras come in on the weekends. And I just did it on the front end. I didn't know if I was gonna have 9 on all 3 lots, but I bought the permit just to cover myself. So, problem is, there's a lot of money that I have spent, and now the codes are changing, and that doesn't settle too good.
Okay.
So,
Understood. Appreciate your comment.
thank you.
Just, Mr. Chair, Carl, did you say you put in a water meter in each lot? What's that?
Okay, I don't want to close this out before everybody has their chance. So having here, everybody's through with this. I'm going to close the public hearing. Are there any additional questions from counselors or staff or anyone in the audience? As a reminder, I would like to close the public hearing. Only counselors will be able to speak after I close the hearing. So I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:24. So we did it in under an hour. That's a lot better than last time we were doing this. I think we were at 3 hours. And public testimony is now over. It's now time for the PC to deliberate. Do I have any comments from the Planning Commission?
Really good meeting and really great to hear everybody's thoughts and opinions and circumstances. So there's a lot to discuss, and it's going to take some time, but I think we're all somewhat on the same page.
Anybody else?
Michelle, you
Yeah,
I
Karen.
appreciate all the feedback, both for and support and against. Also, just that we've done a lot of work on the whole entire development code, not just the RVs, but I know that gets the most attention. So thank you for sitting through that part. I think what we heard here tonight with lot size is certainly something that our planning commission did discuss at several meetings. And this has gone back from planning commission to council, this one topic several times. So I'm sure that we'll have more deliberation about this and communication, and hopefully we'll make a recommendation that'll work for everybody.
I just want to concur that I appreciate all the comment. I appreciate all the people that sent in letters to help me personally have a better understanding of what the issues are. I do have to say, I've been sitting on planning commission almost since the fire. I've lived in Detroit for 50 years, and I'm still confused about, I'm not confused about what's being proposed, but I'm confused about what we have been debating about for the last year. Because quite honestly, after our house was burnt down, my first thought was, it's okay, I can get an RV, we can live in an RV on our property. And then was told, no, you can't. And I'm thinking, how is that I own a piece of land and I can't live on it in an RV or a tiny house or a tent? Honestly, that's where I was at. And so I was, for the longest time until Christian Aid Ministries came, we were going to own a piece of property and be living in my mom's backyard. So I'm like, how did you guys all get to live in an RV, and how are we now proposing living in an RV for, all year? Like now that's a thing, you can put that in the property. And so I have mixed feelings about it. But if I search my heart ethically, and I think about the lowliest person who might not have any other means, but they own a piece of land, by golly, they should be able to live on it. So for that reason, I would go, okay. And I'm also a little bit confused about people saying that, and I don't blame them, too, that they've been having 3 or 4 RVs on their property for the past few years, so why are you taking it away from us? And then I'm hearing you, McCready, say, well, that's an RV park, and now we're considering that that's okay. I mean, I'm still completely confused about what's allowable, what's not allowable, what we really can condone, and what we can't. And also in these planning meetings, as we're talking about these, one of the things that I've heard over and over again, which I don't hear any of you bringing up, and it sounds like you're all very responsible property owners, but people dumping gray water on the, people not having a place for an RV dump. And that was the other thing, right after the fire. We did get an RV at my mom's house, but where are you gonna dump? There was no access to dump stations around here. So, and I hear literally, because like I said, I heard people saying those days, other people dumping their RVs. And so I'm happy to hear that we're gonna have code enforcement, and I hope that somebody really is checking that out. I love the idea of the person and position mentioned in like, or thinking about the plot map, like submitting that to City Hall. We had to submit, a site plan and have somebody say, where our septic is located, where our house will be located. So I would hope that people who are having RVs on the property would also have to do that. And we're saying that they have to have it hooked up to city water. I don't know, I just feel like some people are allowed to get away with things and other people aren't, and that doesn't feel right either.
All right. Kevin, you got a
Mr.
recommendation?
Chair, I don't yet. I do, but I don't. I just want to talk,
Okay.
like everybody else got to talk. What are you laughing at me for, Rich? Yeah. No, I want to say this because I think everybody in this room can probably relate if they have RVs on property. I remember how I got to Detroit was 1999. I put my RV in Canes. And I was there for many years, and then I went to the Lakeside Hotel and had an RV for many years. And then I bought a home in 2012 on Cluster. So half of my life in Detroit has been spent in RVs for the summer, not in the wintertime. Hauled it down the hill every year. And And I know that there's a lot of people that have homes or that are building homes or whatever that have started in RVs up here. And it's a part of the culture. It really is a part of the culture in the summertime. I think this commission, I'll speak for myself, but I do think the commission, the planning commission, cares about the quality of life up here. And making sure that we are following some rules that, yeah, do I own my own property? Should I do anything that I want to do with it? Well, go buy 80 acres of agricultural property and try to, or less than 80 acres and try to build a house on it. The state will tell you you can't do it, right? I mean, people tell you you can't do things with your property all the time. So there's going to be some restrictions that we come up with. But what I've heard tonight, Mr. Chair, is that I think we need to have some flexibility in the code. That's my opinion. And the Planning Commission can either reject or whatever motion, accept or reject whatever motion that is made. And it's a motion to the City Council as a recommendation. But I don't even know if there's a motion written down that we were supposed to pass, but I know what I want to say if you're ready. And what I would like to do is make a motion that we would recommend to the City Council that we have a policy that was presented to us of one RV year-round, a second RV seasonal that was presented with, and maybe the council will kick this back to us to look at it further, with a option, and I'm going to call it a conditional use permit, with an option to apply for a conditional use permit.
For an RV park.
No. Well,
I mean, it's there.
No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But for a conditional use permit based on lot sizes to be determined later. And I want to make sure that water meters are hooked up. And that's why somebody said they had 2 tax lots. I appreciate, three water meters, because that's important. And then all the other rules are followed that are outlined there. Now, that's probably a muddy motion.
Well, I appreciate something. Anybody want to make a comment on it? Do you have any feelings one way or the other regarding that motion?
I don't think it's unreasonable. My question to McCray is that language already there in the code?
This language is already here in the code.
That's what I thought.
I'm hearing there's hesitancy around the RV park, right? So if we wanted to have something different, because if you're going to have a conditional use, to be able to have additional RVs, whether temporary, seasonally, or for a longer period of time.
It's temporary. It's not a full-time RV park.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
let me ask this, Mr. Chair, if I may ask staff. So somebody could challenge our code, right? And I think this is a gray area.
yeah, it's great.
RV park is a year-round park that people come and go and live in, etc. If we make it temporary, because even if we do the one year-round and one temporary, we're still, according to what you said, we're still stepping past the RV park.
Could I read what section 4.5.5 recreational vehicle park that's permitted as a conditional use, what it requires for criteria?
State code?
Our current code.
Oh, okay.
Could I read that for everyone? General development standards. So if someone wanted, so let's assume that tonight it was you all move forward and recommend to council that they adopt the staff report and the findings and the code as proposed. Our current code permits an RV park on single-family residential and multifamily residential as a conditional use, and the criteria. Recreational vehicles shall not be occupied by manufactured home, except there can be one manufactured home on a property. So if someone has a manufactured home on their property already, they could, have additional RVs if they gain this approval. Access roads shall be paved or gravel and shall have direct access to a paved or gravel street. Parking roadways shall be a minimum of 20 feet in width, curb to curb, provided that if parking is to be allowed on either side of the street, the minimum width shall be increased by 7 feet. Camping supplies and convenient foods may be sold within a building with proper licensing and signage. The entrance shall be designed with an adequate parking area for those registering, checking out, or stopping at the store without blocking access to the designated spaces and without causing congestion. All outdoor lighting shall be directed away from adjacent residential property, and a dump station for discharging wastewater holding tanks shall be provided unless each space is equipped with a septic sewer connection. So those are the standards if someone was to want to apply for a conditional use to have an RV park on their property.
So, Mr. Chair, that's impossible to meet because
Yes.
you wouldn't have a septic system for them.
What?
And the current RV parks don't have septic systems.
A current RV park does have a septic system.
Not in Detroit.
I'm sorry, I don't know the street up this way.
Oh, yeah, but
Like-
Canes doesn't.
I can't speak to Canes, and Canes is non-conforming, right? Canes has been here for 60 years.
Okay.
So
So they're grandfathered, basically.
They're grandfathered in, yeah.
Yeah.
Non-conforming is not a bad term. It's just it was developed prior to our zoning code being in place.
So, question, go ahead, Gina. It was Gina's question, I'm sorry.
I mean, you could always add some additional criteria. You could change the criteria here. I hear what you're saying, and I'm just trying to highlight back to you that you have the provision that allows for this additional land use with some criteria, and also the ability for neighbors to be involved and comment, and an ultimate hearing of a public body to make the final decision. Yes.
So the only thing that we would not be able to meet in that current code is the septic. Is that what I'm understanding?
Mhm.
Because it said gravel or paved. I thought earlier
Mhm.
you had mentioned maybe paved only, but it sounds
Yeah.
like gravel
Gravel.
or paved.
Yeah.
As I understand it, the county is working on a septic sewer system for the RV parks in town as well, as they are all the commercial corridor on Detroit Avenue.
I am not directly involved in that
yeah.
project, but
So
I know that there's a lot of activity to
Right. I
bring
don't know if you
commercial
can speak to
septic.
that, Kevin, or not.
I'm a Detroit Planning Commissioner tonight.
Very good, okay.
Yeah. But there, with the North St. Anne Sewer Authority, there is
Yes.
a lot of work happening to figure out solutions for septic, both residential and commercial, here in Detroit.
So we could. So, McCray, Gene, I think you bring up a good point. So if we eliminated the septic part and said it just was pumped, right? That had pumping service available and abided by all the rules, no gray water, all that. Would that work?
That gets to this provision of allowing some flexibility so that people could, I mean, that's what's proposed now. Changing this language so that it could be permitted for what you're targeting is a good idea. Yeah. I think it would allow the flexibility that you're discussing. And it takes it through a public process, a conditional use process with the Planning Commission and the City Council making that final decision on if it would be permitted.
So it would allow the larger lots that we're hearing that would like to have more than 2 RVs that maybe can accommodate that and still have meet setbacks.
Anybody want to put that in a motion, please?
Well, you want me to restate the motion then?
Yeah, let's see if we can clarify a little bit.
What?
I've heard you say that you'd like to make a revision to 4.5.5 of the RV standards to allow the dump stations to be pumped, for holding tanks to be able to be pumped, which we can do. And ultimately, the other provision is accepting the code amendments as they are.
Right. So, Mr. Chair, I would move that we recommend to the City Council that we accept the code amendments as presented and change the criteria for RV park to from septic system to ability to pump RVs so that somebody can apply for a conditional use permit.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yes. Thank you.
We need a second so we can discuss.
I'll second.
Can I?
Gina,
so-
second.
Yeah, we need a second on this, please.
Yeah, Gina.
I'll second.
A second? Okay, any discussion?
Can I just say I'm still a little bit confused because I heard at least one person, maybe two, state, I thought, even prior to the fire, that they could have two on the lot and then they could get a permit for a third. So I'm wondering, so I'm wondering what was the mechanism to allow that?
So as I understand the process, someone would come in for a permit. After they have two, they're fine. They want to have two additional ones. They were supposed to come in every summer and obtain a permit for two more. It would be brought to City Council, or maybe two counselors would come into City Hall and they could sign off on that permit. And that's how that process went. Was that in compliance with state statute? I'm not sure. We don't have we don't have a legal action that's telling us that, but we know that if you have more than one RV on a property per state requirements, that it would be an RV park, and by our code right now, that would require a conditional use. So it would appear that there was a conflict in what our code was permitting, how our code was permitting people to have RVs, how we were functioning and doing it, and what state building code considers an RV park. So this is helping to clarify that discrepancy. Yeah?
Because I would imagine some people now would say, well, why are we talking about, gee, why don't we just
Of course. Yeah.
use that allow that?
Yeah, of course. These are all reasonable questions, and I understand the confusion that people are having, and the intention now is to clarify and have it be compliant and be correct, and in compliance with state rules that are local rules that are adopted here, regardless of what was adopted 6 years ago.
Okay. So we have a first and we have a second. I'd like to call a vote. All those for the motion, in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 So we have three, four. So motion is approved. Next scheduled meeting is May 9th. Before we adjourn, I'd like to tell everybody that we have at least one position on planning, and as soon as we're through this RV stuff, we're going to have two, because I've been on it for 10 years and I'm done. So we really, if you like to be a part of the process, you will not appreciate it until you do it. So keep that in mind. So a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I like being here, so I'm not going to second.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.